Do you ever notice how easy it is to just live in your head? Like to analyze, replay, overthink every single moment, to recall things from the past that you can't shake, as if mental gymnastics could fix an emotional pattern that started in your emotions, right? In your heart. When you're in your head, you're living in the disease of the brain. You're never actually enjoying the moment that you're in, and you're never experiencing, the moment or the experience itself through your whole body. You're never having a holistic experience of it. You're in your head, and you're doing who knows what, right? And you're trapped in thought instead of engaged in life. And that's the beginning of emotional disease, when your emotions stop being information and they start becoming infection. That's the topic for today, emotional patterns. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of Iconic Freedom, the formula. We are setting a standard for accountability and responsibility, the ownership of your choices, and everything that follows. You own that as well. Let each care for self, and all will be cared for. So what is that formula? Well, it depends on your life. What is the standard that you wish to set for yourself? You look at that periodic chart. I bring that up every week now, that it's choice, responsibility, and accountability. And that's how those things flow. If you are utilizing that chart, if you're thinking in terms of, wanting to have a good flow of your own life, in a sense of how things move and groove through your daily experiences, then you're going to have choice and responsibility in that choice, where you take ownership of it, and accountability, where you own the outcomes and everything that follows. And that, in every choice that you make, you're realizing that you're not doing any harm to yourself and others. And that's what the formula is all about. It's the standard you set for yourself for responsibility and accountability. So I started talking about, that opening segment there was about, the emotion and the infection, the emotional patterns, and then the infection that comes with it. And the signal of emotion is, and I've brought this up before, is that emotions aren't actions, they're reactions. They're signals, they're red flags, little indicators that something is off balance. But here's the thing, when you overvalue them, when you linger in them or replay them or rehearse them, they start to dominate your experience. And you expect to gain something from a reaction, but reaction isn't creation. In a sense, it's kind of a clap back. It's an echo. It's a boomerang. It's not doing anything for you to move forward with. And what do I mean by that? Well, emotion is simply the flashpoint of awareness. If you're stuck in emotion, then you're stuck. You're out of the holistic experience. You're out of reality, and all you're really doing is just emoting. When you're in reality, you have observation, and you're able to manage that. But emotion is simply that flashpoint of awareness that I've talked about before. It's that momentary thing of, hey, something needs attention here. Now the question becomes, I posit to you, what action do you take from that awareness? Because that's where accountability and responsibility live. What action do you take from that awareness? So this formula in motion, right? That every emotional pattern gives you a chance to self-evaluate and self-correct. I mean, you think about it, it is such a beautiful process. Every emotional pattern will give you an opportunity for you to look at it for yourself and to correct it. You notice it, you assess it, you act differently the next time. I liked this and not that. I enjoyed this and not that. And so for the next time, here's what I'm going to do. That's the formula at work. Emotion to awareness to action to self-correction. The string to the rope to the bell to the cow. You follow it along. Emotion to awareness, action to self-correction. And when you do that consistently, the emotional pattern that you had previously will start to dissolve. It'll start to disappear. You're not repressing it. You're just refining it. And hopefully, like myself and many others, and hopefully you're doing this too, hopefully what you're doing is you're attempting to integrate new information, integrate new connectors, if you will, in the brain to rid itself of disease and to experience a more holistic experience of your life. But I will tell you, there is this poison of self-righteous emotion. When someone's convinced that they're correct, emotion stops serving your awareness and it starts serving your ego. And I approach my life that, you know what, I am correct for myself. However, I know that with more information, with more experiences, I might change my mind. And that's a very healthy place to be. If that's where you are, that is a very healthy place to be. But if you're saying, well, I'm correct, I'm right, well, that's righteousness, right? And it starts serving your ego because you, for whatever reason, you got something going on that you don't want to back off of that and say, oh, I could be incorrect. I could be correct for me, but maybe it's not correct in general or for other people, but it might be correct for me. But I'll tell you what, that's what that self-righteousness, that ego, that's when it turns to self-righteousness, because the ideology of being right is more important to you than the experience that you're having in order to grow and to develop. And boy, if you're in that place, that's a hard road to hoe, to be honest. I've been there, I mean, I was there decades ago, and it was a very difficult life, filled with anxiety, filled with anger, filled with, frustration all the time. And what happens is people start spreading their emotional infection across society, mistaking volume for virtue, their loudness for virtue and their anger for integrity. They literally, when people get stuck in their ideology and they start spewing that forth, think of it this way. If you can't come up with this imagery for yourself, that it's literally infecting you. It's like if you saw the movie Ghost, you remember when somebody bad would die, and then the shadow would come and would get taken to hell or whatever. But what if it went into you? What if it dragged itself into you? That every time somebody with that kind of self-righteousness and that ideology, serving their own ego, what if they were just spewing that out like a disease and, like a cancer, and it was going into you? Wouldn't you stop it? I mean, it's, when you think about it, people do this whole thing where they have, they'll get loud, in order to be virtuous. What was the thing about When you have facts, you pound the facts, and when you don't, you pound the table, right? Okay. So we talk about being loud for virtue, the volume for virtue, anger for your integrity, projection disguised as passion. If the shift that someone was having were genuine, it wouldn't come in grand gestures. It would arrive quietly in increments. Because true growth isn't dramatic. I can attest to it from my own witnessing and from what I observe about nature itself. You can witness this in nature objectively. You see how growth, it isn't dramatic. A tree doesn't happen overnight. A flower doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. And it takes, whatever whatever it needs from nature, and it makes the change over time. It comes in on tiptoe, barely noticed and integrated into your life. Because real change doesn't shout. It shows itself to you. It reveals itself through new choices lived over time. Years ago, when I was involved with the Tea Party and all this shenanigans, there was this Congressman, J.D. Hayworth, who was running for office. And, suddenly he made this change, this shift from, being a pork barrel spender to not. And I remember being online and, going on the radio at different times locally, and then, being online with people that were involved with his campaign. Listen, I'd like him to tell us how he got there, because that is the reality. Listen for the politicians and the celebrities and whoever is in the public when they want to sit there and say they've made a change. The next question from anybody in the audience, from a reporter, should be, please tell us concrete and specifically the steps you took to get there. Because if they cannot tell you, then they're not there. When you take those steps, when you take steps to develop yourself in anything in life, you can tell people how you got there. If you're a person that likes to work out, and you gained a lot of muscle and a lot of weight that way, and you feel good about yourself, you can tell people how you got there. If you were a person who felt like they wanted to go to college or they wanted to go to a trade school and you had to take steps to get there, you can tell people how you got there. If you've learned things about your own relationships and your friendships and your family, you can tell people how you got there, how you moved towards something or away from something, because you never forget it. You never forget how you got there. So keep that in mind. Think about that as part of this whole idea of understanding emotion, right? And emotional patterns. Now, there is a piece of this that I think physiology meets psychology in a sense, although I don't really like the word psychology. But even your brain chemistry plays it plays a role. Fats and proteins feed your brain. People that go on a fast, I've done this. I just came off of one for a couple of days. And when the brain was getting a little foggy, take a little bit of butter. That fat is fantastic for the brain. It doesn't spike your insulin, and yet it keeps you even keel. So fats and proteins will feed your brain, literally. They stabilize your mood. They will help repair those neural pathways, and they'll balance your internal signals. When you feel healthy and you feel steady and it feels natural, it's like stepping onto a magic carpet. I mean, there's really no other way to describe it. It's like stepping onto a magic carpet. When your body is nourished, right? And your mind steadies. And when your mind steadies, your emotions will follow. They'll be steady. It's, you've heard people say they're hangry. It's because they're hungry. Once they eat, they're able to think more clearly. They're able to be more stable. And that's how you move from emotional reactivity or reaction to emotional intelligence of a sort, by supporting both systems, the mind and the body. But the mind is more about staying out of the emotion and just letting the body speak to you, and then wait for the consciousness to bring something to you that you'll be like, oh, I don't like that. It's like, oh, so I want to do this instead. And then that's where you move. You don't sit there and analyze it and, well, what about this? Or what about that? Well, what about this? Or what about that? It's like, I've said this before. You could spend a lifetime never making a choice, never moving. So when you're emotionally balanced, you stop needing the fight to be right. That rhymes. When you're emotionally balanced, when you're even keeled, you stop needing to fight in order to be right. You don't care about it. You start having conversations instead of combats. Anger never builds. It only burns, right? Anger burns. It burns, relationships. It burns situations. It burns your integrity. It burns your image. It burns your reputation. Conversation, on the other hand, that builds. It builds clarity and calm and connection to other ideas, this idea to that idea and this idea. And it's the difference between needing to win and wanting to understand. It's that whole conversation of, I seek to understand. Talk to me. Tell us, speak to satisfaction. You've heard me say that, right? I tell clients all the time, we'll talk to satisfaction. No problem. Ask the question, the same question as many times as you like, until you feel satisfied, you feel secure, calm, whatever it is about your questions. Because every moment that you choose conversation over war, you choose accountability over reaction. And I can't say enough about that. That if you can have conversation, you can literally avoid war. Now look, there are some people out there, they are hell-bent that they are diseased. Their mind is diseased, their broken brain, to the extent that they can't do anything else. They live in that very bottom feeder type of existence. And so then, unfortunately, you got to manage that, right? And, that's why people need to be able to defend themselves. So that refinement loop is the hallmark of real growth. You feel the emotion, you pause, you ask what it's trying to show you, and then you act with awareness. You choose, you make a choice with awareness. And over time, that loop becomes so instinctive, you don't even know that you're doing it. You're just doing it. You're not being ruled by your emotion, and you're being informed by it. And that's freedom. That's the ability to respond rather than react. Listen, you're not meant to be emotionless. That's not what this is about. You're meant to be emotionally aware. Emotion is the smoke that tells you that something's burning. It is not the fire itself. So trace it back to its source. That's where ownership begins. And once you take ownership, the emotion will transform from chaos to clarity. And the more order you have in your life, I tell you, the more beautiful your life will be. So here are some things to think about, okay? As far as, let's say, some quotes from today's podcast. Basically, some things to think about, right? When you're in your head, you're in the disease of the brain. Emotion isn't an action, it's a reaction. And not necessarily a good one. Self-righteous emotion is the poison of our society people engaging in that and trying to poison your mind, your holistic experience with their ideology. True growth isn't dramatic. It comes in and on tiptoe, it barely is noticed, and it integrates into your life. Emotion is the smoke, not the fire. Trace it back to find ownership. Okay, we are at the end of another podcast. Hey, thank you so much for joining me. Wow, that went by fast. Hit that like button if you would. Share it with your family and friends. You never know how it might support them in their endeavor as well as your own. All the fun links are below, and if you're inclined, feel free to subscribe on Buzzsprout. I am on X and Truth Social, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. And until next time, stay sharp, stay sovereign. As always, remember, let each care for self, and all will be cared for. Have another great week.